We'll call this July meeting to order. And I'd like to confirm that a press release was sent out about the meeting.
A release was sent appropriately.
All
The
right.
press has been notified.
All right. If everyone could please introduce themselves quickly. My name is Bev Merrill. I work at Welcome House. Our home office is in Covington.
I'm Zach Worsham with Winterwood Incorporated, based in Lexington.
Hello, I'm Kenya Stump, Kentucky Office of Energy Policy Executive Director.
Tracy Jackson, Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Office of the Secretary.
Christina Espinosa, Human Development Institute, the University Center on Disability for Kentucky.
Ann Price with People's Self-Help Housing.
Brian Perry, Kentucky Department of Education, Commissioner's Office.
Logan Haynes, Kentucky Manufactured Housing Institute.
Michael Gardner, Rebound, Inc.
Olivia McCowan, Home Builders Association of Kentucky.
Dean Lloyd, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Buddy Kittle, Stockton Mortgage, representing Mortgage Bankers Association of Kentucky as well.
Kathy Figel-Stoller, Department for Local Government.
Brian Slusher, United Brotherhood of Carpenters, Central Midwest Regional Council here in Lexington, Kentucky.
I think that's most of our members. I'm Wendy Smith, Deputy Executive Director over Housing Programs here at KHC.
I'm Lisa Barron, Special Projects here at KHC.
Kelly Reynolds, Assistant Director of Housing Contract Administration at KHC.
And I wanted to check and see if there was anyone here who was not on the committee who wanted to raise an issue that was not on the agenda. All right. If everyone could please take a moment to review the minutes of the April meeting. And after you've had a chance to review them, if I had someone who could motion and second to approve them.
Motion to approve.
All right, that's Kenya Stump.
This is Ann. I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so we've approved the minutes. And next we'll move on. We have Lacey Bowling with us, who's the Executive Director of the Paducah Cooperative Ministry, to talk about their organization.
Hey there, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Bev. It looks like you're sharing your screen with my slides, and if that works for everybody, we can just do that. I have quite a few slides, but really just wanted you all to see what we're doing here in Paducah.
Whatever's easier for you. If you'd rather do the slides from your screen, that's fine also.
It might be easier, but you'll have to enable that for me to be able to do that. I just tried to share on myself and I was disabled. So
okay. Communications, could you do that? I don't know if I have the ability. See if I can stop sharing if that.
while they're working on that, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Lacey Bowling, originally from Ohio County, Davis County area. I've lived in Paducah, Kentucky since 2007 when I graduated from Murray State. I have a Bachelor of Science degree, do a little bit of stuff there with criminal justice and political science, and done a lot of work with retail pharmacies, and then I switched over to nonprofits a couple years ago. And I've worked at Paducah Cooperative Ministry since 2022. And so, can you all see my screen here?
No.
Nope.
I see you, but not.
That's good. You can see me too. That works for me. All right. Well, let's see. If that won't work, if you all can still if you all will just want to share the screen, I don't want to waste any more time trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Let me just hit share real quick and we'll see if that works. Anything?
Wait, yeah, it's coming up now. It looks like.
Now it seems like a perpetual screen share here. All right. What about now?
Yeah, we're seeing like there.
Yeah,
got it.
Good.
All right, great deal. So I have a Master of Public Administration as well, but I am been currently working in the homeless space here at Paducah Cooperative Ministry. It's a 52-year-old organization that centers around homeless and hunger. We serve about 800 families from our food pantry. And that's families, not individuals. So our average family has about 2 to 3 folks in it. Primarily, that food is comprised from United States Department of Agriculture food, but it's also a lot of food that's donated locally. We provide financial services to folks who are in need. That might mean electric bills, water bills, rent deposits, things like that. But we also run Fresh Start Village, if anyone has ever heard of that. We currently aren't federally funded or state funded. We are funded locally. So that might mean endowments, local grants like United Way, and we're mostly funded by local donors. So, excuse me. We'll get into a little bit more about our housing in just a moment, but I just wanted to let you know this is kind of what we've done historically is Fresh Start Village. But I really want to talk to you about the kind of turn in homeless services and housing in West Kentucky. I know a lot of folks, from what I could hear, sounded like Lexington, Frankfort. Is that about right?
We're from all over the state.
Yeah,
but
we're from all over
majority.
Northern Kentucky, East Kentucky, plenty from the central.
Who's closest to Paducah? All right, great. That's kind of what I thought. And so that happens to West Kentucky a lot is what I...
Jeremy in Owensboro here.
All right, great. So, Jeremy, I went to Davis County High School. That's where I graduated from, and grew up in the Fordsville area.
Lacey?
Yeah.
Just want to say Muhlenberg County here.
Hey, okay, great. So, I know Laura Kaler works there with a lot of folks in Muhlenberg County, and who doesn't love John Prine? And so, West Kentucky a lot of times gets forgot about, especially with the homeless issues. You know, as a matter of fact, we're lovingly referred to with the rest of the state as the balance of the state. We just get so much attention. We're just lumped in with everyone else, you know? And so I wanted to show you what Fresh Start Village looks like. So in addition to our food services, a big part of where our budget goes to is what you see here. It's called Fresh Start Village. That building with the kind of the orange roof is where a lot of our events go on. So we've got a little library in there, a small, very small computer lab for our folks, a small kitchen in there for our kids to go to after school. But these 6 buildings in the middle here are dorm style buildings. And that's where we house 48 women and children throughout the year in our transitional program. So folks stay there about 116 days. This building on the very end here is where we have some volunteers that live there and help us oversee that building. It's set up here. It's our blueprint style, 4 bedrooms in each, and then a shared living and common area there. This was finished in 2017 through no federal or local funds. That was all donated by the folks of McCracken County. And so last year we had 91 adults stay with us, 60 children. We were able to have 76% of those folks exit into stable housing. 91% of those exited with income. And we're very proud of the work that we're doing at Fresh Start Village. What we are finding is that here's an image of that inside that front building that I was telling you about. In 2024, we instituted resident advisory council meetings, and that is one here, just so that we can get feedback directly from our folks. What would you like to see done differently? And that's really helped build community among the people that live with us for those 4 months while they go through the programs the supportive programs that we provide. That may be helping folks find daycare, helping people sign up for Section 8, Homeless and Housing Coalition vouchers, Housing Authority of Paducah lists, getting people attached to the community and supportive services, getting people in to see primary care physicians, which most have not seen in some time, making sure they have supportive mental health, dental, just getting people attached to other community services that we are not able to provide. We are a 7-staff facility, and so it's very difficult for us to provide all those things, but we do have a lot of connections with Kentucky Care and places like that. So in 2025, we moved into that homeless and hunger model. Typically, we had been able to provide financial services to anybody that was struggling financially. In 2025, we noted that if we kept on with that model, we would probably make it about 5 years because we were what most would call bleeding financially. And so I made the decision along with my board to say, look, if we really want to do things differently and get out of this duplicative space, we're going to have to really focus in on homeless services. And this is Crystal. And so Crystal had been homeless most of her life. She graduated out of foster care without a family, and so had been homeless since then. So we had been working with other agencies, Community Kitchen, Kentucky Care, Starfish Orphan Ministry, and with all of those agencies and then Fresh Start Village, we were able to get Crystal into the Jackson House, which is a subsidized living facility. We had to write reference letters for her and a few other things. But after about a 6-month stay at Fresh Start Village, Crystal was a little more intensive case. We were able to get her into the Jackson House. And so that is kind of what we like to do, work with other agencies. And she's one of our success stories. She's still living there in the Jackson House. But now what we do is anybody who's ever been homeless in their life, whether that's living in McCracken County or if you lived in Louisville or anywhere else, we will help you financially get a deposit, provided that you're able to go kind of through. We want to be able to look at your budget, look at those things, and provided that you're able to kind of talk through us about your homeless journey, we can help you financially get back on your feet and work with you as a kind of a survivor of homelessness. A lot of people ask us, who are the homeless of McCracken County and who are we serving at Fresh Start Village? In 2023, when I arrived, we started tracking that data. And unfortunately, for a lot of folks, we are letting them know that this is a McCracken County issue. These are our residents. These are our neighbors. These are not just numbers. So if you look here, overwhelmingly, the people that we serve are from McCracken County. Very few are from out of state. This is 2023 data, and if you look at 2024, it is the same. And so we expect 2024 to be just like that. We hear from a lot of our local officials that, you know, if we build a homeless shelter, we're going to be expecting people to come from as far away as Detroit. We hear that a lot, or we're going to entertain people from Louisville, Lexington. And it has not been the case with Fresh Start Village. This is our homegrown poverty. These are our friends and neighbors. A lot of people have been in foster care. A lot of people are experiencing going from 2 income households down to 1. And that is typically the catalyst for their homelessness, but not necessarily the root cause. I wanted to make sure that I shared with you that we also are keeping track of who is homeless with regard to the youth in our community. We find that these numbers are not always reflected in the point in time count, which I'll share with you in just a moment. I know that our friends from Kentucky Housing Corporation are on the call, but we're seeing in Paducah Public Schools, our McKinney-Vento liaisons are reporting 248 students in their programming at Paducah Public Schools and 212 students in McCracken County schools. In that academic season, 5 students lived with us or were currently living with us at the time I sent this to you at Fresh Start Village. And then in our academic year, 36 students had lived with us at Fresh Start Village from Paducah Public Schools. So again, this is not really an out-of-state issue. It's not folks coming to us from Louisville. These are the folks that we live next to. These are my kids go to Paducah Public Schools, and so how are we ever going to be successful if we don't figure this issue out? And as you all know, the point in time count really helps us keep an estimate of our homeless population throughout the state. The numbers were just released for 2025. Ours went down a little bit, but overall in Kentucky, we're seeing these numbers. It went up 10%. In McCracken County in 2025, ours dropped just a smidge from 192 to 160. And so you're here looking at about a 10-year kind of a gradual increase in McCracken County. As you know, there's not enough inventory throughout Kentucky. We're in a housing crisis, as with the rest of the nation. We are currently 3,805 units short per the Kentucky Housing Corporation. We anticipate that to continue increasing through 2029. In McCracken County, our fair market rent is $992 for a 2-bedroom. We're seeing friends come to us in McCracken County with a 2-bedroom rent at $1,600, spending 50 to 75% of their monthly income on rent. We know that people cannot keep up with that. And just yesterday, a lady came and said, I'm just going to have to walk away from this apartment. It's $1,200. I work 2 full-time jobs and I cannot keep up. She made $12 an hour at one, and I think it was $8 an hour at another as a CNA. And that's not going to keep her in that housing wage at $1,908. We're just seeing our folks that are working and are not able to keep up. But moving forward, I do want to let you know that this is kind of what we have on the horizon for us at Paducah Cooperative Ministry. I told you that we had made that transition to homeless and hunger in 2025. We want to make sure that we have a place for people who are on our waiting list at Fresh Start Village. In 2025, we're seeing calls upwards of 115 calls a month for shelter. At Fresh Start Village, through our program, we're able to get 10 in and 10 out a month. That's our average. And we're getting 115 calls for shelter a month. As you can tell, that math does not exactly math. There are no beds for people that are in emergent situations. We had 13 calls for shelter just between yesterday and today alone. And there are nowhere that we can find for those 13 families to go. Shelters in Louisville are full, Lexington are full, Hawkinsville are full, Nashville are full. And with the criminalization of homelessness in Kentucky, we are forced to inform our neighbors and guests to commit crimes because there are no places to go. We are proposing, if you see that red square there, that was gifted to us last year by some friends of PCM. And so our plans are to create a 50-bed emergency drop-in shelter. Unfortunately, this arrow right here, I didn't anticipate that being on my screen, but that is where our current building sits, where our food pantry is. And so that is what we are going to create as a 50-bed shelter. But in order to do that, we need to complete phase 1. So that red square is where we're going to remodel that building into a client choice pantry, which will be the first of its kind in West Kentucky. So we're going to try to work with some of our local farmers and neighbors to create a more welcoming space that will be a client choice with produce. Folks will be able to come in, select what they would like culturally and more appropriate for their family, which will reduce food waste. That's what this will look like here, hopefully. And then we'll create in our current building a 50-bed shelter, which you'll see here. So hopefully we'll have a place for those 13 families that are calling that we do not have space for in West Kentucky. That's the plan for us. We currently have raised 1.4 million of our 3.25 million. And that's, again, it's going to be locally funded with our local grants. This is just a breakdown of how we are funded. 48% come from just individual donors. 6% comes from groups. So think like businesses, local hospitals, things like that. Very few comes from fundraising. That little small gold portion there comes from our just the top of our endowments, just what we're able to pull off the top there. And then the rest is local grants. I would love to entertain any questions that you all have about PCM, what we're doing, what we're seeing here. And I really am thankful for the opportunity that you all have given us to just share what we're doing here in West Kentucky.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join our committee and share that with us.
Now, Bev, I do find it hard to believe that there's no questions on that. Let's give it a little more time.
All right.
Just like when we didn't know anybody was close to Paducah, and we found our Owensboro friend, and we found our Muhlenberg friend.
I have a question.
Thank you.
My name is Vicki Bowling, and I'm with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. I'm their LIHEAP program specialist, which that's a time for us too, with LIHEAP happening or not happening potentially.
I know.
Curious as to what the criteria is. Like if someone comes in, are there certain requirements they have to meet, or any kind of certain, the criteria? I'm just interested in knowing what that might be.
We don't really have a lot of criteria, Vicki, but they do have to be able to kind of live in that space with other folks. So there's going to be about 8 people in that unit. And so some people aren't really excited about that, and they'll just say, I can't really do that. A lot of our friends have mental illness or are recovering from substance use, and that usually kind of puts people over the edge. We do not ask for any payment. We do not take anything from anybody as far as payment or anything like that. We don't take any of their benefits, but there's no real requirement.
So I'm sorry, if they have like a mental health need, are those needs, or if they're looking for a job or want to go back to school, are those kinds of needs met through any of your programs?
Well, we work with other folks. So West Kentucky Tech, we work with Goodwill Opportunity Center here in Paducah to help them find jobs, because we're not really experts in that, but we have friends that are. And so our caseworker works with them individually to develop a case management plan for them specifically. And so, yes, 91% of our folks exit with an income.
Wow.
So whatever that is, we're going to find them. Some people are on disability. Some people are working 2-3 jobs. It just
Wow.
depends.
Listen,
A lot of our folks have mental illness.
I just want to say how impressive that is. I have not heard anything. You're truly an original. I have not seen anything like your program before. I hope that you catch on and there's other places that can step in and do those sorts of things in other communities. So thank you very much for what you're doing for our people.
Well, you're welcome, Vicki, and I like your last name. Mine is often spelled like yours.
Yeah, girl, mine does too. And then some go 2 L's, some go
I
2
know.
L's. I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you. You can look us up on at sharepcm.org and you can find more about
Beautiful.
it.
Thank you.
Hey, Lacey, it's Kenya here.
Hey.
On your village, I noticed there was a picture and it looked like you had solar on one of the buildings, but maybe that was a stock photo.
It is. No, it's two. We don't have stock photos.
Okay, just checking. We've got a program that maybe we can talk offline, Lacey. We've got a program here where we're deploying solar and even like storage for housing, multifamily housing, serving low income and vulnerable populations. And I'm wondering if we might have a connection, if you've got an opportunity where you might need some more solar to help out.
Yeah, we would love that.
Just something I saw. I don't know if there's going to be any synergies there, eligibility, but I think the work you're doing, maybe we could potentially find some ways to see how we could support it on the energy side.
Yes, thank you. That's a big cost of ours, that energy. Thank you. Yeah, those were installed by Project Pomona here in Paducah. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they helped us install those in 2018.
Lacey, I'll just laud you for the work y'all do, but also for the way you are tying the experience of the folks you work with and homelessness in Paducah to the housing supply gap, because we really feel like while individuals have issues that make them more vulnerable to homelessness, it is this general environment of housing just costs too damn much and it's eating up so much of folks' incomes that it's not about personal failures and flaws that people are becoming homeless or housing unstable. We all have personal failures and flaws, but many of us manage to stay housed for one reason or another. And we're just seeing homelessness went up by double digits for the second year in a row in Kentucky this year. And first-time homelessness and working homelessness are increasing. And those are market failures. That is our market not producing enough units.
Right. Yeah. Well, we really appreciate the work you do because it gives us data to support what we see. And, it's really, we're at 116 days people stay, and it costs us $25 a day for people to stay with us. In 2018, the stay was 90 days. And so the housing gap also cost us money. And we could do our program faster if there were places to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we talked to the city a lot about that. And, we've just joined HMIS to try to, get a little funding. And we're doing our best to do that, Wendy. So thank you. That is a lot. Thank you, but we're doing our best. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
See, Bev, you just got to give
You're
people some
right.
time.
You are right.
I have a
Olivia.
question.
Yeah.
Hi, Lacey. I have a background in fundraising before this role, and I follow you on social media, and I've been seeing a lot of cool ideas that you have about your all's capital campaign. I know maybe some other people in this group are familiar with fundraising, and so I just thought maybe you could share some of your cool ideas and how that's coming along.
Oh gosh, Olivia, what was one of our cool ideas? I'm trying to think.
I was just looking. Didn't you all do like a derby thing?
Oh yeah, we had this really cute derby party, and it was really a lot of fun. And so we had like square dancing and just trying to do some cool things like that. Um, we're at because we are locally funded, we are always looking for great fundraiser ideas. And you all know that sometimes fundraising ideas are fun, but the raising part is lacking. And so any ideas that you all have would be really beneficial to us because we're so dependent on local funding and endowments and things like that. We know we're doing really great work, but sometimes it's discouraging in the current climate, as you all know, as everyone knows. But the need is so great. But yes, Olivia, we're doing cool. Like we're having a hot dog, beer, and Italian ice party at my friend Sarah's house, and their goal is to raise $25,000. We have a moonlight bike ride where we just kind of shut down some streets in Paducah on August 2nd, and we just decorate our bikes and ride down the street, and we just really try to engage the community and educate the community on homelessness, because I have to believe that it's not that people don't care about their neighbors, it's that they don't realize the struggle their neighbors have. I often ask people what's the minimum wage, and no one knows it's that low, and no one understands what fair market rates are, or rent is, or how much this rent is costing because they don't live or work in the spaces that we all work in. And so really just educating people as well as fundraising is a big part of it. Thank you, Olivia. And if anybody has money, I can take it, but whatever. Anything else, Bev? Any other questions, anyone?
No, we appreciate your
Yeah,
tenacity
you're welcome.
and your enthusiasm. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And next we'll have Kelly Reynolds give us her weatherization update.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Lisa's pulling up the slides, I will say to Lacey, I too am from Ohio County in the house. So there you go. I know, right? Originally, yes. There you go. Okay, so let's talk about weatherization. My favorite topic. I just wanted to give some updates on what's going on federally, what's going on kind of with our state planning, so that you can see things are always moving. I think when we talked in April, the Department of Energy was reducing staff and shuffling staff around, and some staff are staying and some staff are staying for 30 days. And so the staffing levels seem to have kind of stabilized, so to speak. We still think there could be another RIF. We're not sure, but for the moment, they have been stable since really the middle of May. So 2 months of stability we're going to take. So because of that, because the staffing is stable, we are seeing funds flow pretty regularly. We're not waiting and waiting and waiting on our weatherization funds to get to us. So that's good too. The Department of Energy has now started reviewing our formula state plans. So that state plan at our April meeting that we were working to, approve as part of the HPAC and our policy advisory committee under weatherization, that was submitted in May. We didn't hear anything until after the 1st of July, which is actually when we are supposed to start work on that funding. We did at that point receive a new project officer, and he informed us that they were going to start reviewing those plans. He gave us some feedback. We made corrections. Then about 2.5 weeks ago, we got new budgets. So we actually were awarded more funding because they had decided not to fulfill some employment enhancement and innovation grants and CERC grants under that funding. So we got a little bit more money. So we had to redo the budget, which is a 2-day task. So we resubmitted that on Wednesday. Word on the street is that if you didn't have your state plans submitted by Friday, close of business, that you would not get reviewed very quickly. So we met that deadline. So there is that. So there is some hope in things moving. Okay, Lisa, next slide. So this is just kind of a recount of we were meeting all of the deadlines. We did, thanks to Wendy approving this, we asked for a 90-day no-cost extension on our current formula rant, is what the slide says. It's supposed to be grant. Sometimes I do feel like it's a rant, by the way. So what that did for us is it extended our deadline from June 30th through September 30th. We did that so that if the state plan that we're still kind of in limbo on wasn't approved by July 1st, that our subgrantees could continue to kind of spend money as they have been used to. So that's one reason why we did it. Another reason, we needed to get our average cost per unit down. It gave us more time to spend money. So it just kind of was a win-win situation. So we did that. That was granted. So right now our subgrantees are working on the formula money that was supposed to expire June 30th, that now expires September 30th. And while we're waiting for our new state plan to be reviewed, which actually starts a new 3-year grant cycle. We did receive new formula allocations, so that's why we had to redo the budget. And again, we resubmitted that state plan last Wednesday, which was the 16th of July. All right, next slide. IIJA weatherization funding. So we think we're in the clear on our IIJA weatherization funding because it was awarded and obligated before the new administration took office. So we think we're fine. We have received memos that as long as funds were obligated out of the IIJA, that those obligations would be withheld or upheld. So we were awarded originally almost $52 million. We've spent 15.7% of that funding. So we still have about $43 million remaining. That grant is until 2029. Originally, it was 2027, but DOE in November extended that to 2029. And if you just roughly do an estimate, that would be about $10 million per year with our remaining funding. So we actually are doing, we're in an okay spot. And then we'll talk about what's happening federally with weatherization. So that's on the next slide. Actually, it is coming. LIHEAP funding. So LIHEAP funding is a little trickier. So the way our allocation works is the July 1, because we receive our funding from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, we receive 25% of the state fiscal year funding because it's the federal fiscal year and the state fiscal year don't match. So it's just a little quirky. So we received that contract back in the winter. That started on July 1st. All of the subgrantees had that funding, had their contracts. All is well. We had 25% of that LIHEAP funding. So we're in business with LIHEAP. It's flowing pretty well. So all is well with that. Okay, now we're ready for the legislation and funding. Yeah. All right. So I said that IIJA weatherization funding is in place until 2029. We are not hearing that that's going to be taken back. It was obligated. It was obligated in the DOE financial system. So we signed all the contracts for it. So it should be ours to spend until 2029. DOE formula. So here's what's going on now. So we're under a continuing resolution. That is the current state plan funding that is being reviewed now is what came out with the continuing resolution funding of level funding for 2025. What we're looking at for 2026 is the president did zero out weatherization formula funding in his budget. The Senate is waiting on the appropriations markup in their energy and water subcommittee. So we still don't know what may happen at the Senate level. The House just came out last week. Their energy and water subcommittee recommended $195 million for weatherization in federal fiscal year 26, which also includes our weatherization ready which is super helpful when we have deferred units. That is a reduction from our federal fiscal year 25 funding. So this continuing resolution that we're on, that is a reduction. It's a pretty significant reduction, but we feel that it is a win that it just stayed in the budget. So I'm not complaining too terribly much right now. And with our IIJA money, it's okay. We're okay, right? LIHEAP weatherization is a little bit more violent. There's a lot more going on with it. As you know, LIHEAP was cut out of out of President Trump's budget. The FY25 bird rules came into play at the Senate. So, like they left us alone for weatherization and for LIHEAP. The House subcommittee that oversees LIHEAP they are pretty much delayed. They don't think they're going to have any appropriations until September. So who knows what will happen in 2026. And we're still really waiting to see what the Senate does for 2026 with their appropriations on that as well. So the LIHEAP and LIHEAP weatherization. So weatherization is a 15% carve out of the LIHEAP funding. And that falls under Health and Human Services, which falls under, I think, the Committee for Department of Education and Health. So we're still waiting on that. Who knows what's going to happen with LIHEAP? All right, I think yeah. So another little fast, quick update is Representative Guthrie's meeting. So we at Kentucky are a member of NASCAS, National Association for State Council of State Programs, Community Service Programs. Anyway, I am currently on the board of that organization. It is a membership organization of state grantees that do community service block grants and state grantees of weatherization. So I am currently serving on the board. We hired a lobbyist called Andile, and Andile has arranged a meeting with Guthrie on July 31st, and they asked if I could join them since he is our Kentucky delegation. He is also the chair of the Energy and Water Committee at the House. So they asked if I could join at least for the educational portion of the meeting, which is what I will be joining them on. And then when they start the lobbying activity, I'll drop off the call. So that's kind of how that's going to go. And then I think my next slide is kind of the talking points. So these are talking points I've prepared for our community action and weatherization network, because it's not all community actions, for our weatherization network as they're talking to their representatives and their congressmen about what weatherization does. So these will be the key talking points that I will have for Guthrie's office, but it maintains our current housing stock in the state. It helps us develop and create workforce opportunities. It allows us to contract with utility funding. So a lot of our subgrantees have the utilities created rebate programs and other programs that they can pair with weatherization funding. And we also then are able to make homes affordable for people to stay in because their utilities are lower. So those will be our key talking points. We have a success story that we like to share, which is really telling. And probably I haven't ever shared this success story with you all, but we served an elderly woman in Representative Guthrie's area. She was spending in December 2020 or 2023, she was spending $256 a month on her utility bills, and her thermostat was set at 68 degrees. We went in, we did weatherization services in December 2024, so a year later. Her utility bills were at $150 a month, and she was able to set her thermostat at 74 degrees. So it's quite telling really what that success means to someone, because you think if you have an extra $100 in your pocket every month, that's $1,200 a year. So it is significant, especially to elderly who are on fixed incomes. And then I just included a link in here to our YouTube channel at Kentucky Housing. If you go to videos and then search weatherization, we have some other success stories on there as well. And our communications department just put another story on there yesterday, which is an interview with one of our contractors and why he wanted to work in the weatherization network. So lots of good things going on. But does anybody have any questions? I feel like that's a lot of information and I went through it really fast. All right, Bev.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Kelly. We appreciate it. Adrian, it looks like you're going to give us an uplifting legislative update.
I sure am, Bev. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian Bush with the Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky. And yes, I was asked to give a brief legislative update, given that many of the laws that were passed by the General Assembly, if they didn't have an emergency clause attached to them, they went into effect at the end of June. So we thought this might be better timing in terms of giving the update. So last year, during the interim between legislative sessions, legislative leadership created a task force to discuss housing in the Commonwealth, our housing shortage in particular. And so moving into the 2025 session, we weren't sure exactly what we were going to see carried forward from the task force and, put into legislative bills or proposals. The good news is, during this past session, we saw more housing bills than we've ever, and good housing bills than we've ever seen before, which is a testament to the work that many of us on this call are doing and the rising costs of housing all across the board in all areas of our state. But knowing it was a short session, we just weren't sure exactly what was going to happen. So a couple of bills did come out of this session. One is House Bill 160, that I am not an expert on. We do have the expert on this call, Logan Haynes. This was something that the Manufactured Housing Institute folks had really championed. And so they worked with Representative Whitten from Louisville to create parity in local zoning requirements for manufactured housing. So I'm happy to take a pause here and ask Logan to say something if he wants to. But he may be off the call, or he may not want to.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, huge thanks to Representative Whitten and all the General Assembly, but also big thanks to you all. I can tell you the work that KHC did, especially in their various analysis, certainly played a key role in getting us across the board and just helping to tell the story of what's going to be needed to overcome that 206 to 289,000 home deficit in Kentucky. So thanks to Wendy and crew and in their help and advocacy and everyone on the call.
Great, thank you. On the Senate side, we had Senate Bill 25, which was filed by Senator Robbie Mills from Henderson, who co-chaired the Housing Task Force. And this would amend KRS 103.200 to include multifamily housing developments of 48 units or more in the definition of building for sections related to industrial revenue bonds. So giving local governments some more tools, borrowing authority, to hopefully spur some multifamily development. And then also on the Senate side, Senate Bill 129, Senator Rocky Adams filed this piece of legislation. It is pretty Louisville-specific law that will help housing nonprofits turn blighted and abandoned properties into affordable housing, strengthen the use of tax incentives for urban residential development. So I think we're interested knowing that while we have this housing gap, we also know, I worked for the census part-time in 2010, and I can tell you how many vacant and abandoned units we had in Perry County then, and it was a lot then. Figuring out how do we turn what housing we do have back into usable and desirable places to live. So this interim, and I will let Wendy talk about this because I know she's up next a little bit more, but the legislative Chair decided to reconvene the Housing Task Force with the same co-chairs, Representative Whitten, again from Louisville, Senator Mills from Henderson, with some. So a few of the members remain the same from last year, but there are new folks. There are new potential housing champions. And so real quickly, Senator Carpenter from Berea, Senator Deneen from Elizabethtown, Senator Higdon from Lebanon is a repeat task force member, and he also sits on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Advisory Committee. Senator Neal from Louisville is new. Senator Smith, who sits on HPAC from Hazard, is new to the task force. Representative Kleins from Alexandria, Northern Kentucky, is a repeat from last year. Representative Decker from Waddy, Shelby County, who is also on HPAC, is new to the task force. Representative Holloway from Mayfield, very much needed representation from far west Kentucky there. And then Representative McPherson from Scottsville is new as well. And then Representative Watkins from Louisville is new. And just a note, I know we normally have Representative Decker and Senator Smith here, but I also know that the Southern Legislative Conference is meeting in West Virginia at the Greenbrier, so we can all be jealous of them today. So, but I think they will meet from June until November. I think Senator Mills, in his opening remarks at the task force meeting at the end of June, really set the stage to say last year was about education, getting people up to speed. This year, they would like to put together some legislative packages that can really help us close the housing supply gap. So I'm very excited and optimistic about this, especially in light of what is happening at the federal level with both, with primarily the appropriations outlook. I do think it is going to be increasingly up to states to figure this out and give us the tools that we need to solve our housing issues. So with that, I am happy to take any questions. Now Bev's afraid to move on.
I am. No, thank you very much, Adrian.
I do have one more thing to say, and that
Okay.
is not a question for Lacey, but it is a compliment, because ever since she took over at Paducah Cooperative Ministry, she hit the ground running, and they've been an amazing partner in Paducah and here in Frankfort. And she does a great job, definitely educating the folks in the region, using media very, very well to definitely tie the cause of homelessness as the affordable housing crisis that we have. So kudos to her.
Agreed. All right. Thanks, Adrian. And now on to Wendy for an update on our housing supply gap.
This will follow Adrian's update, hopefully pretty well. You can go to the next slide, Lisa. I wanted to first touch on a few federal updates. I don't have slides on this, so you can just stay on this slide, Lisa. So you all may have seen some of the op-eds or other messaging we have done at KHC about the White House proposed budget, which would have been, to put it bluntly, pretty cataclysmic in many ways. The House has come out with their draft budget, which is not nearly, it's still problematic. I'm not trying to change that notion, but it is not nearly as just disruptive and cataclysmic as the White House budget. It does zero out one of our key programs, the Home Investment Partnership, and it creates some other challenges like a 2-year limit on rent assistance, which is often not enough for a household, particularly in this escalating rent environment, to be able to cover their rent 100% on their own. The Senate has not come out with the draft budget, so we are still very much in the mix of things. The other thing I will say is that the Reconciliation Act recently passed, also known as the Big Beautiful Bill. While it had some really, really big downsides for low-income Kentuckians in the long run, it did benefit our tax credit programs. We got a 12% increase to what we call our 9% tax credits, which help build rental housing for low-income folks. It also changed what's called the 50% test for our tax-exempt bond financing, which is used by multifamily developers. It changed that to a lower test, which will probably increase the number of units we can build by potentially 40%. We're not exactly sure yet. There's a lot of variables at play, but those are positive things. Overall, the bill is pretty worrisome for poor Kentuckians, but those are kind of bright lights in the midst of it all. Then I wanted to share with you all a little bit about the task force that Adrian already touched on, particularly some of our messaging. So if you'll go to the next slide, Lisa. So again, Adrian already shared with you, the task force has reconvened. 4 of the members are returning and the remainder are new members. So it's important just to know that. They held their first meeting June 30th. The next meeting is July 28th. They do have a web page where you can see the members, you can see their materials. So all of the presentations from last week are on there. And they also, if you just Google Kentucky Housing Task Force, you can usually find YouTube videos of the meetings if that's of interest. Next slide. So Winston Miller, our CEO, and I presented at the June 30th meeting. We were asked to kind of do a level setting of kind of what's been going on in the marketplace. There are so many new members. We were asked to offer our recommended areas of focus for the task force, which we were happy to do. Next slide. So I'm going to share just a few highlights with you all. We had a much longer presentation, which is available on the task force website. One of the things we shared a lot about the housing supply gap. We've presented to you all on that. I won't retrace that ground, but we did share some new data that has been published by the National Association of Home Builders. They have published the actual and projected housing starts through 2027. And basically what you can see is there's not expected to be a big uptick in construction. And that multifamily, which are the green bars, is really just leveling out, as is single family, which are the orange bars. And this is exact opposite of what we need. We need a lot more construction to bring housing costs down and reduce homelessness. And that's just not likely to happen under current market conditions, unless there were some major kind of market interventions or incentives. Next slide. And as was mentioned when Lacey was talking, these housing market dynamics have resulted in increased homelessness in Kentucky. From 23 to 24, we saw a 10% increase statewide, 24 to 25, and 11%. So these are year over year, double-digit increases. And really, we've been seeing increases, I think, for the last 4 years. So it's very worrisome to us to see homelessness continue to climb. And I want to dispel the notion that this is because of just because of addiction or mental illness or what have you. Those things are realities, but lots of parts of our country have high rates of substance use disorder or mental illness or what have you. But because they're building more housing or they have more vacant housing, their housing costs aren't escalating at such a high rate. I just think it's really important to note that. Next slide. We were also asked to share what are the resources out there for affordable housing development. I'm not going to go over this in detail, but we basically tried to show for different income bands on the housing continuum and different types of housing, what are the federal programs or tax incentives that are out there to support different kinds of housing. So we shared from the federal point of view, and then next slide, we shared what Kentucky does itself. And really, there's not a lot of Kentucky resources. We have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the Rural Housing Trust Fund, and then there is some, we do some mortgages and down payment assistance at KHC, which is really for your middle, moderate, and middle income home buyers. And then there is a mortgage interest deduction at the state level that supports, homeowners. Next slide. The big thing we wanted to underline for the task force members was that almost all of those resources have been in place since well before the 2008 housing crisis, which is really when, as a country and as a state, we started building way fewer units, and we've never bounced back. And so these budgeted programs and the private financing that might accompany them have not been sufficient to spark housing construction that we need to keep up with the demand in Kentucky or in the US. And so we'll still have this supply gap if we don't change something. These resources are not, moving the dial. Next slide. And at the same time, many other states are taking some pretty aggressive steps to accelerate their housing supply. And that's falling into a few categories. Many are establishing some really big production goals, like we will build this many units per year for this many years, or this many units overall. We've seen a little bit of that here in Kentucky. Some of you may be acquainted with, Mayor Greenberg has set some numeric goals for how many affordable units they want to get built in Louisville. Many states and cities are looking at land use and zoning changes, either aggressively changing them or creating incentives for more dense zoning and changes to land use. Some states are tying funding to the locality altering their zoning. So if you want this funding, you'll get to the top of the list if you allow for denser construction, if you allow for accessory dwelling units, things like that. Some states are going as far as banning, exclusionary zoning, or saying, like in Montana, they really framed it as a property rights thing. But they said if you own a single family home, you have the right to build an accessory dwelling on that land. Kind of an interesting approach. And many states are creating funding and financing tools to spur more housing development, tax credits, tax abatement, housing infrastructure funding, housing development financing. Next slide. So we offered to the task force 3 areas that we recommended they focus on. Look, there are many, many, many housing things that would be very meaningful and that we could get behind, but we know attention and time is limited, and we want to focus on the things we feel like make the most sense. And so we have 3 areas. The first 2 are things that our partners have long advocated for, and the third is a newer item. So first, modernize the way that the Kentucky Affordable Housing Trust Fund is funded. 2 is to create a state housing tax credit. And then 3 is to establish a large revolving loan fund to catalyze construction. Next slide. So with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the current way it's funded has been the same since 1992. It's a $6 fee when documents are recorded at the county clerk's office, and that money goes to the finance cabinet and then comes to KHC quarterly. Next slide. So that $6 fee is really low compared to many other states. You'll see neighboring West Virginia, it's $20, Ohio, $17, and it goes up from there. So we are really behind in modernizing this. There have been some proposals to increase it, and then maybe even have it track with inflation, so it would automatically have a mechanism for increasing over time. You can see what's happened by virtue of setting a flat fee that's been unchanged since 1992. It's just very, very low. Next slide. We also have recommended the creation of a state low-income housing tax credit. Again, like the Affordable Housing Trust Fund funding, this is something that partners have been advocating for many years. It would work alongside the federal tax credit, and it would serve to basically be gap funding for those projects where, and possibly free up a federal or state gap funding that would be needed. Next slide. Most other states, I think it's something like 30 other states, have a low-income housing tax credit at the state level that runs alongside the federal credit. So you can see Kentucky, we had one proposed last year. That's why it's colored yellow. This is a map from an organization called Novogradac. We are really kind of a standalone. There aren't many states that don't have something. Next slide. Okay, and then lastly, and this is the kind of the new element that I think it was well received. No, I can't predict the future, but I think that there's some appetite for something along these lines, which would be flexible resources that accelerate housing production. And what we really want is resources that can move the market by incentivizing public-private partnerships. That's how most units through KHC are built. It's usually a private nonprofit or a private for-profit developer that is taking on quite a bit of risk with the help of some kind of tax credits, gap funding, or financing. We would love to see a gigantic revolving loan fund that could be used by just private builders, nonprofits, tax credit developers. We would love to see tools that are tied to economic development, because we're hearing so much about jobs and the need for housing tied to jobs. And we'd love to see employer-assisted housing where employers have some stake in supporting the housing. Next slide. This is just an example of some of the programs that states have rolled out over the last few years. I'm just showing you all this, and we showed it to the task force, just to show how aggressive and what the funding amounts have been. You know, states have gotten really, really aggressive with this. And in Indiana in particular, they have the residential infrastructure program. They also have something called READY, which I have on another slide, which puts even more money into it. But what we tried to get across to the task force is Kentucky's probably behind. There are many states who started this several years ago, and we are really behind. And there's becoming kind of an understanding that states and localities that get on top of housing production are going to fare better in the economy. Next slide. We also really emphasized for the task force that the flexibility of state level funds like the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and these kinds of like revolving loan funds for infrastructure and development, the flexibility is essential. It lowers the cost of getting stuff built because it just doesn't have that federal brick of regulations. It moves faster for that same reason. And it has less red tape. It just can be more nimble and responsive to what it makes sense in different local areas. And it doesn't require, you know, a team of 10 sophisticated vendors to help you do an environmental review and do subsidy layering, just all these things that it takes to use federal dollars for construction. Next slide. We highlighted, and the Chamber of Commerce has also highlighted these programs. These will also be featured at KHC's conference. We will have folks from Indiana presenting on this program and the one I have on my next slide. So the Residential Infrastructure Fund, which is called RIF, is a $75 million revolving loan fund that funds just the infrastructure. So this is roads, acquisition, any kind of, you know, grading, utilities, all that kind of stuff to basically get buildable lots. And the aim is that the local government would take out the loan to offset the risk, and that as homes sell or as there's tax revenue, the loan would be paid back. Next slide. This is a program that is related but not officially linked to the RIF program. The Indiana READY program, which is an economic development program, and it's much broader in scope, they have invested $1 billion. It was two $500 million investments. And it's really, the aim of it is to have regions where you might have a city, let's say like Paducah, and the surrounding region, do some planning about what their priorities are. And they can be things that fall into quality of life, quality of place, and quality of opportunity. So they can be childcare, it can be housing, it can be infrastructure, it can be trails and parks. It really is asking local communities, what are their priorities? And then once they get a general commitment, then they bring specific projects to the Economic Development Cabinet in Indiana and get funding and financing for those. 20% of the funds so far have gone directly to housing projects, and a significant percentage have gone to infrastructure, which can support housing. So it's not just a housing program, but a lot of the investments have been housing. Next slide. And this is just to give you a sense of, it really is a regionalized approach. So I think of our ad districts as a possibility, right? And it is large amounts of funding for these regional groups to implement projects and leverage other dollars. It requires a lot of leverage of other dollars, but pretty significant and flexible resources. And so again, we highlighted that for the task force, and we will be featuring those at our conference, where we have invited several of the task force members to be on a panel, and then the session about these programs happens right after that. So we're hoping to, get them linked right into that. And I think that's all of my slides.
All right. Thanks, Wendy. Does anybody have questions or comments? All right, thanks, Wendy. Does anyone have any informational items or announcements?
We just wanted to make sure you all knew again about our conference up in Covington, August 20th and 21st. And again, we'll have at least the co-chairs of the Housing Task Force have confirmed that they will be at our legislative plenary. And then we'll have a session right after that about those Indiana programs that we and the Chamber and the Home Builders Association have highlighted to the task force.
Bev, this is Jennifer Decker. I just found my unmute button and
hello
back on the screen. I apologize for being late. I had another meeting today, but I was able to join for the last hour. So I did want to congratulate and thank Wendy for her excellent presentation before the task force. I am a new member of the task force, and you all did a great job. Everybody talked about it later. Very informative, and I especially appreciate your notebook you left for us to refer back to. I did want to mention that, I run 2 homeless shelters here in Shelby County, and just without my going out and researching the percentage, I could tell over the past few years how much more homelessness there is. In fact, so much. We're always full. And last summer, do you have just a minute for me to tell you this story?
Yeah.
Last summer, we had 2 women and children who were seeking shelter. And by the way, I really appreciated your comment, Wendy, about, people think of homeless being addicted and drug related. We have children. We have no drugs. We routinely drug test. Our women are mostly abused, others profoundly poor. And we can have none of that in our shelters. We work closely with CP, Child Protective Services, and with the courts. They tend to give visitation, and sometimes they give children back to the mother if they're in our program because it's so tightly run. So I really appreciate your thought that there are lots of reasons for being homeless, and not being able to find housing is one of them. So last summer, it just was highlighted when we had 2 women at separate times in the summer who sought shelter. We were full, as we chronically are, and we could not find shelter anywhere. We went to various states, every place we could find for abused women, and they stayed in their cars in the summer in that heat, and it haunted me personally. And then in the winter, there was a story that you all may have heard from, I think it was Detroit, where a woman was sleeping in her cart and she went into a hospital parking lot. She ran out of gas. Her children froze to death. And so we were already concerned. For years we've been concerned, but it was like a wake-up call that, we are a faith-based group. We feel called by God to help these people we service. So we decided that we had to step out and buy a building. So we are in a $2.5 million capital campaign. We're going to double our shelter space because of the very things you're talking about. It is, there are no homes, there are no affordable homes. Even when women graduate our program, the first problem we have is finding affordable housing. So I see this on every level, and I just appreciate the work this group does. I'm thrilled to be on the task force. I hope we can come up with some solutions. I don't think the government is the answer to everything. I think, we are called to protect each other and step out and help. So we're getting ready to have our biggest fundraiser of the year. Hope you all will come. Just teasing. But in fact, we have a member of Duck Dynasty who's coming to help us raise funds. So it's going to be a fun time. But the point is, there is so much need out there for housing. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate the work that this group does. So thank you. And thank you for allowing me to join late.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jennifer. Are there any other informational items or announcements?
Bev, this is Lisa, and I just wanted to welcome Kenya Stump, who is with us. She's the new proxy for Secretary Rebecca Goodman at the Energy and Environmental Cabinet. So we're really glad to have you joining us at this meeting and being a new member of the committee as proxy for the Secretary.
Thank you. I was going to wait until next time, but I'll give some brief remarks. One, enjoyed immensely seeing Wendy and Kelly with KHC and also the Paducah work. Just to give you all an update here at the Office of Energy Policy, we've got two programs, well, actually three. Similar to Kelly, we have a state energy program funding that often gets tied in with weatherization funding on the federal appropriations. We're watching that closely. We do a lot of efficiency work with that and energy affordability. So energy affordability is strongly tied to housing affordability. But we also have two other programs. Be happy to talk more at a later date. We have our Solar for All program, and we're going to be targeting disaster housing, low income, existing weatherized housing, as well as opportunities for CDFIs to get funding to do solar work at low income housing. And then we also have a $130 million home energy rebate program that we're working with DOE on. And that again is targeted to rebates to low income housing, upwards of $14,000 per home to improve basic weatherization measures, as well as new heat pumps. We're really targeting those homes that have no cooling systems because we feel that is a health and safety issue, as well as those that have resistance heating to get new heat pumps in that. So more to come on that. Really happy to be a part of this group. Happy to share information on our programs. We work so well with Wendy and Kelly and share stories, and we're really trying to figure out how our funding can kind of help fill the gaps in between. Working with Logan on some manufactured housing initiatives that we have as well. So thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. Happy to be here.
Bev, we both were muted. You and I were talking to each other, but we were both muted.
Thank you. Are there any suggestions for our next meeting's agenda? And we will be meeting in person. All right. If anything comes up, feel free to email me and let me know, and we'd be happy to try and get that on the agenda. So our next meeting will be October 28th. It'll be in person, so information will be coming out about that. So if we could please have a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, that's Zach.
Second. I said-
And Jen, was that you, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you and see you at the October meeting.